Your willingness to explore things will almost always make a way.
Yeah.
If you can be willing. It is the being met with unwillingness that there's only so far that can go.
Yeah. Hey guys, welcome back to Honey, We Need to Chat. We are the podcast all about communication in a relationship. We believe that when communication dies in a relationship, bad things happen.
Yes, so we chat.
We do. We chat about it.
Yep. And do you know what is really cool? Just by the fact that you're listening to this episode, that tells us something about who you are as well. And that tells us that you are passionate about having an enriched relationship. You're passionate about communication. You're passionate about the type of partner that you are or you want to be in relationship. And you're willing to be challenged and grow. So we're so excited to have you here because this topic is huge. We're going to be diving into something really important for relationships today. It's all about unmet needs, the sneaky ones and the subtle ones that kind of just sit there and we don't really even necessarily identify them for ourselves. And unfortunately, they often lead to some big blow-ups. So today's topic is heavy, it's important, and it's the exact type of content that people like us, you and us, really love to tackle to enrich us as partners. And it's a Reddit episode, so we're going to dive into some real stories about this stuff. We're going to listen to examples of real life people navigating unmet needs in a variety of ways and workshop them together to see how we would tackle them and see what practical ways can come out of that. So today we're going to be exploring a few stories that unpack the really quiet unmet needs that we don't always communicate about, but do often show up in the gaps or in the heated moments. They kind of blow up in arguments. And by the end, we're going to be sitting with a story that is pretty common, I think, in relationships, one of the most common unmet needs that a lot of couples are afraid to tackle. So stick around for that one. If intimacy, distance, or feeling unwanted is something that you've tackled and something you want to be challenged and strengthened in, this is for you. You're not alone, and we are here to chat through this with you.
Absolutely. But before we do get into that, it's really exciting. Leading up in a couple of weeks, actually, you have, and I'm going to be partaking in the visual side of things by watching it with my eyeballs, your Come From Away show.
Yeah.
Yeah. How are you feeling?
Yeah, excited. 20 days until our opening night, which is wild. Really excited. It's been such a challenging process. It's been an honor, and I'm very excited to see it come together. But I know that the next 3 weeks is going to be really full on. Actually, the next 4 weeks is going to be really full on.
Yeah. But for those that don't know this show, so Come From Away, I am not a massive musical guy. I'm growing in that area, but I'm not a massive musical guy. I had never seen a musical before I'd met you. Anyway, when you first started telling me about Come From Away, it sounded very bland. I'm like, I don't get it. Or why would you make a musical about that? But it's actually my favorite musical now. And that's no joke. I'm not just saying that. This is actually such an amazing, emotional, informative musical.
Fun
yeah,
well,
it's funny, fun, serious, sad. It's like all of the emotions. Like I definitely shredded some tears. Also shredded I shredded those tears. In like
in just a really manly way.
Yeah, shredded them, man cry.
Yeah.
But tell us about it. So for those that don't know what the show is.
So it's about an island off of Canada that suddenly had to take in 7,000 people when September 11th happened because planes were diverted because the American airspace was shut down. And the population literally doubled in a day. And yeah, when you explain it, it doesn't quite capture how deep and just magical really the musical is. But I was brainstorming some promo stuff earlier for the company, the theater company. And it's not a September 11th show. It's actually a September 12th show, meaning it's not about what happened on September 11th. It's about everything that followed in this tiny island where they had to care for these people from all over the world that were really scared and lost and some in really horrible situations. It's also 12 cast members playing over 30 characters with no prop changes, no scene changes, we change costume on stage. It all happens there. There's no intermission. It's just bang right there. Incredibly impressive, put together execution of the thing. I can't think of the words because that's how tired I am from doing rehearsals. If you're local, we would love to have you there. Come From Away. The link will be in our bio, in the show description, on our platforms, and in our posts as well. So check it out. We would love to have you there. Come and watch me be very nervous on stage. Come from away. Anyway, that's Amy's update. Come From Away. But now we're going to dive into the episode, Unmet Needs.
Honey, we need to chat.
So what is unmet needs? Just a quick summary to introduce us to these stories. Unmet needs in relationships are emotional, physical, or psychological needs that go unacknowledged, unexpressed, or unfulfilled over time. And unexpressed is really important. I think that's key to a lot of the stories that we hear and a lot of the stories we're going to navigate in this episode. But yeah, unacknowledged, unexpressed, or unfulfilled. And they're not high maintenance or neediness. They're more about the core needs that people are feeling a lack in or something's missing there. It more speaks to core baseline needs like feeling seen, feeling safe, feeling loved, feeling connected, even if it's like coming out in a surface level thing. They're sneaky. Most couples don't argue about the unmet need itself. They usually argue about the symptoms, like I've just said. So common symptoms you might see popping up in a relationship when it's actually about a core need is snapping or irritation over nothing, common quotations and nothing, withdrawal or going quiet, or the stonewalling stuff we've spoken about, passive aggressive comments, usually indicating there's a little bit of bitterness going on there, lack of desire or intimacy, feeling like roommates instead of partners, and we've done a whole episode on that one as well, resentment or scorekeeping, over explaining or shutting down. And that's just a few of the ways that these things might present in a relationship that might indicate that although those feel like the things you have to tackle, there's probably something more foundational going on.
And we also wanted to share about why unmet needs are hard to name.
Yeah.
It's definitely something that we've navigated through. So we'll have conversations and sometimes we feel like we're going around in circles.
Yeah.
And then we pause and we come back. It's like, all right, well, upon reflection, I can see it's this thing. So like, yeah, naming what we're feeling can be really hard, but we don't always know what we need. We just feel off. Like, it's just like, all right, something's not right here. I don't know what it is, but it's just not sitting easy with me. We're taught to downplay our needs. We don't want to be a burden to someone else. And we expect our partner to just know our needs and our wants, which is just something we've spoken about before of like, that's just not accurate. That's not something.
Oh, it's just so common.
Also, we fear rejection or making it worse by speaking up. Yeah. And I've done that before, like where I will shut down or I'll hold my tongue. It's like, I just can't be bothered going through this whole conversation or making it worse or whatever else. And I still have to keep working on that.
Yeah. We had a big conversation about these things basically the other day. So it's so common. And a lot of the time, I find personally, at least, I can't even figure out what the unmet need is until I've like dug, usually in a conversation, because otherwise it just goes round and round. But yeah, that's why they're hard to name. That's why they're usually unmet. That's why they usually are sneaky. And let's dive into some stories and see how they might be playing out for real life people. So this is a first story from Reddit. The title is, "Am I a Bad Guy?" For telling my girlfriend if she's going to just throw out what I make her, she can cook for herself. I, 30 male, live with my little brother, 28 male, and my girlfriend, 30 female. And sometimes neither of us will feel like cooking. I'm assuming the little brother doesn't cook as well, because we said neither. So when the other goes to cook, we ask them to cook for us too. It's a system that works out. We normally cook for ourselves, but sometimes we also cook a big meal for everyone in the house. We also all pitch in for the grocery bill. Most of what's in the house is for us to use, and specific stuff meant for just the person are marked and told in advance. Lately, when my girlfriend has asked me to cook her something that I'm making for myself, and I wake up the next morning to find most of it in the garbage. I'm not a world-class cook by any means, but I don't burn my food or underseason it either. After the last time when she asked me to cook her something, I told her no, that I'm tired of seeing food wasted, not to mention the time I took to cook it for her, and that if she's going to keep throwing food away like that, she can just cook for herself. My brother agrees with me on the subject, that the food waste is annoying and frustrating to see as it needs to end. Some of our friends agree too, while others are saying I just should cook for her anyways and calling me not a nice person for letting her go hungry. There's something I just need to point out about this story before we dive in is she lives with him and his brother. Maybe they're really close. That's great. But also they all cook for themselves. Really interesting dynamic if you're living with your partner.
Yeah, in my head, there's something off about this story. I'm like, why are they doing separate meals? Like, why aren't they doing the same? Like, for the
why
couple?
Did she have to ask him to cook? If he's cooking, why does she have to say, can you cook me something?
Yeah.
Like, why is that their setup?
Yeah. I think it's just a very interesting setup.
Each to their own.
Yeah, definitely. I think in this situation, it's not necessarily about the fact that he doesn't want to cook it. Well, all right. Sorry, because it's such a funny situation. From my view, I'm like, well, I think he's just, if he's got an issue, don't necessarily say, I'm not going to do that anymore because you do this thing. It's like, no, well, what? Have the conversation about her not throwing out the food first. We don't see that part of the conversation.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, cool. Well, I'll do that, but maybe I'll make you a smaller portion. Like, that seems like such a easy thing to navigate through. But I feel like it's just the unspoken thing. Like, we have 100%. These expectations of like, well, you've done this bad thing now, so this is your punishment. I'm not going to do that for you anymore because you keep doing this bad thing. Like, well, yeah, just have the conversation.
Like, she should just know that's why. That he's frustrated by that or hurt by that. And I don't know. It'd be really nice to know, and maybe they dive into it in the comments. I'm not sure because I didn't save them here. It would be really nice to know if she gave a response to that, or if they had conversations about her throwing out the food, or if she had a reason for why she was throwing out the food. Like, who knows if she's like, there could be, I've got a few things that come to mind about why someone may throw out food, and some of them are because, well, one, they're full. Maybe he serves really big servings and she doesn't want to, like, I don't know, maybe she's tried to tell him that before and he hasn't listened. Maybe she's got a history with eating disorders. That can be, people need to feel like they are able to manage the food on their plate, and so there could be some stuff there too. I'm not well versed in that, but let me have a look at the comments and see if I see anything. Something that I think this is just a bit in our season at the moment though, of if she's got any food allergies, or like, so one of our boys, we've just been navigating through gluten-free stuff, right? And even tonight, like today, so we celebrate Mother's Day today. We went out and we got a nice pie and sausage roll at this nice bakery, and it had gluten in it. And like, well, this is all new for us, by the way. It's not like we've been doing this for years. We are not educated in this. We're not educated in this. And then now tonight, like, his stomach is really, really off. Like, he's just really struggling. And but again, depending on how long these guys have been together for, she could have some insecurities around that as well. Like, yeah. There's so many different reasons. Yeah. So I had a quick look at the comments just to see. And someone said, has she given an explanation for why she throws out the food? And he said, I've asked her. She just tells me she doesn't like how it tasted, though I've told her what I'm cooking before I make some for her. So that's when she could have said she didn't want it, which makes sense. And then someone said, why doesn't she just put it away as leftovers? And he said, I honestly wish I knew. We have a Tupperware for it, but she just throws it out instead. To be fair, if it was put up as leftovers, I wouldn't be so frustrated. So yeah, interesting. Could be patterns at family, like history, like how they did stuff in their family. Could be like, I get kind of weird about old food. It kind of just, if the idea in my head really throws me. I eat things that I shouldn't eat. You're a fast thrower out. I shouldn't. Because I just can't stop thinking about it. Yeah. So who knows what is going on, but there is definitely that unspoken. I think there's like a big question mark around why it happens. They need to have that conversation. For him to just be like, she just says she doesn't like it, and that's like the extent of their conversation, is bizarre again to me. Yeah. So if you're new here, what we do in these topics is not necessarily cast our judgment on how they deal with it or their situation or whatever else. What we do is try and unpack how we would have liked to have that conversation. So this just gives us it's essentially just practice for us. Like, how can we grow in our communication? And so we're looking at other people's stories and say, like, cool, well, this is how I would want to receive it, or Amy would want to receive it, or what we would want to be trying to get out of it. Yeah. So definitely there's patterns of not communicating happening and playing out, like him making the call and not having that conversation, her not explaining clearly. There's obviously some kind of miscommunication, and whatever the reason that is there, I think they just need to have some conversations around it, because it sounds like her throwing his food out, and I can understand why this would feel this way, because she doesn't like the taste of it, would make me feel like, but you asked me to make this. Like, that's kind of like throwing that back in his face kind of thing. Like, it's a rejection of his gift to her and his time. It's also a waste of his time, and it's a waste of their resources if they're they're a household that share those resources. So I can understand how it would feel offensive.
Yeah. I don't
upsetting.
like that he's including his brother in the conversation. No. Like if you and I lived together with one of your sisters and you started talking to your sisters about one of my habits, I'd be frustrated.
Well, especially if it was before we had even had the conversation properly. If this had been a repetitive thing that he's talked to her, and he's like, I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
Like, what else do I do? And then I can understand making a like harder stance on it, or maybe being like talking to his people that are close to him. And, like,
and the other thing too, you mentioned before about like it could be something that she's inherited from her family, right? So family patterns. Him and his brother have the same family patterns, right? So that's already like a bias.
You've already got a bias,
exactly.
100%. It'd be different to another housemate that's a bit more neutral. Yeah. Your family almost always is going to have some kind of bias to support, which is beautiful in some ways. But anyway, I think it sounds like both of them are a little bit conflict avoidant, I would say. Like they're just kind of acting out of their frustrations and not really working together on it.
But I understand his frustration as well, right? Like, so if this was a constant thing where I made food and I made you food and you would throw it out, like that would be hard, you know. And so I wouldn't feel the value in the actions that I was doing for you.
And like we said before, these are about unmet needs. So is this just the food, or is there a bigger story that plays out for him that feeds into this rejection of his presence, or his like...
Yeah, well, it could be his input into the relationship, right? Like, so you could also look at it as like, well, this is me contributing to our relationship and it's met with rejection. Yeah. Like there could be, again, there's so many layers to different actions. And again, we've just been having a conversation this week about things that we're navigating through. And there's so many layers to something that you bring up. When you and I talk, we have our topic that we're trying to discuss, but then we also need to discuss all the layers that comes with that too, because we're realizing actually we're triggered now. So where's that trigger coming from? So there's so many things wrapped up in it. And it's like, cool. I feel like for him to put it up on Reddit, it's going to be more than just, hey, I cooked food and my girlfriend's chucking it out. I feel like there's that sense of rejection coming in there, or something deeper, more than just a frustration.
Yeah. So I think if this was if this was me navigating that and you'd been throwing out my food, which you would just never, because it's food. But if this was me, I think I would really want to find time to sit down and be like, why are you throwing it out? Is there a reason you're throwing it out? Is it just that you don't like the flavor of it? And if it is, expressing to you, from my perspective, that's kind of offensive because I put this effort into it and you just chuck it. Like I would be much happier if you don't really want it, for you to just say, no, I don't really want it, or put it in a container and keep it for us so that we've got the leftovers or something. But having the conversations, and instead of assuming and then reacting out of that assumption, having the conversation with curiosity, like we talk about all the time, and figuring out why this might be sitting so poorly with you guys. Anyway, this is a good opportunity. I've added some prompts in for each of these stories as well to just make it a little more practical for us as listeners to think about how this might play out for us in our relationships. So just a question to ponder: where in your relationship have you stopped offering something because you didn't feel seen or appreciated? And if that's happened, has it been a communicated thing, or is it one of those little subtle, almost passive aggressive reactions and punishments to your partner's reaction? A couple things that in this kind of situation you can use as a couple to work through is assuming positive intent opener. So when you go to have the conversation, instead of being like, you're wasting my time, you're throwing out this food, and like you're just being offensive and kind of coming out the gate with an assumption of negative intent, you can come out the gate with, hey, I'm wondering if maybe there's something about the food that I'm not aware of, or like, is there something else going on for you about food? Like, why does this happen? And assuming a positive intent in their actions, even if that doesn't end up being the case. It's an easier way to gently introduce the conversation. The other one is a mutual reset question. And that's where you decide we're both going to put some ground rules out there to help you when you're navigating this. She might not want to finish the food, might not like the flavor. That's okay. We've got these ground rules in place to help us.
Yeah, that's a good one to discuss. And again, it's not this huge dramatic topic, but they're all good topics for us to look through and just evaluate and assess ourselves as well. How are we handling different situations, big or small, and they're important to be aware of. But we're going to keep diving into more in a bit. For example, we're going to do a phones topic and being present in relationships topic. But we wanted to take a bit of a pause here. So if you're enjoying this episode, we just want to give you a little bit of a space to quickly share this with someone else that might get value out of it. And if you are someone that's received this from someone else, that's amazing. That's really encouraging, because this person has been thinking of you, your relationship, the value in your relationship, and your communication in your relationship. So I think that's really, really special when we receive episodes from other people and so forth. So do that now. Take this time, do that now. And we're going to jump into another unmet need.
Great. All right. So the second story is, am I overreacting for considering breaking up with my boyfriend over this detail? My boyfriend, what did you say? Juicy. My boyfriend, let's call him John. He's 20 and I, female 19, just had our first argument. I myself have a very strict rule to put my phone away when in company of other people, and I really value to surround myself with people who think and act alike. However, John is constantly on his phone, and it really started to annoy me. We live an hour train ride away, so usually when we visit each other, we also stay the night. Being together for 2 days after a busy week can be exhausting, so I totally get that at some point he wants some alone time. We're both autistic, by the way, so need a little bit more. And I really wouldn't mind if he would do something for himself, even if it's just for 2 hours. But he doesn't communicate that he's overwhelmed and just grabs his phone whenever he feels like it. And it's hard for me to tell why he's on his phone and when it's okay for me to ask for his attention. Last week, I took him out on a date, and after we had dinner, he was on his phone, and I made a bit of a passive-aggressive comment about me not liking it. I know it was wrong, and I apologized later on. What I didn't know is that he had an emergency with his group project that needed to be fixed right away. Totally understandable, but he didn't tell me. So at the moment, I just thought he was being really rude. Anyway, we are in a fight because I don't have the same values in terms of phone use in each other's company. I don't like it when people are randomly on their phone, and he thinks it's stupid. He needs to give a reason why he's on his phone. I did say it out of anger, but I do mean it. I don't want to be in a relationship with someone who's constantly on their phone, and he thinks it's a stupid detail to throw away everything we have. Honestly, I never get angry, but just writing this makes me really upset. I don't need to have attention every second we are together, but him grabbing his phone out of nowhere while I talk to him just makes me feel like he doesn't care. And when he grabs it when there's a silence, it also makes everything 10 times more awkward for me. If he needs to check on something important, that's fine, but just tell me. Just a simple, wait a sec, this is important is enough. If he's overwhelmed and needs alone time, that's all right too, but just don't grab it because it's there. Phones.
There's quite a lot in this. Like, if she brought out as well for herself about how she made a passive-aggressive comment rather than just a discussion through it, there doesn't seem to be any questions exploring that. You know, she's not really sharing more about why it's a value for her. That it just is, and she's not digging deeper into why is he on his phone as much. And like she even said there, she needs to be more curious rather than accusational. I get it. I genuinely get it. Like I get into that point of like, if you know me, I get this idea in my head. It's like, I want to work on this. I'm going to do these things. I'm going to put these things in place, and then I do it, and I'll be quite strict with it and so forth. And then I'll be confused of like, why isn't anyone else doing this? And it's just this, I don't know why my brain does that, but I just have this expectation that everyone else needs to be doing what I'm doing. I've been challenged by this, so why isn't everyone else? And this has been a cause of many of our arguments as well. And so I do understand her perspective, but at the same time, I understand her perspective, but through experience, I understand the danger of this perspective and this view. Without that evaluation, if she's willing to throw away the relationship over this, I'm like, well, girl, you're probably not ready for relationships.
Well, they're very young anyway, 19 and 20s. And that is where you're learning. You're starting to be like, relationship isn't just about who I have a crush on. Relationship is about who I can see myself living with. But we've spoken about, like even in the last week's episode when we were talking about attachment styles, we've spoken about how being together has changed our approaches to things. And you change because you grow together. And one of the things that we had this argument about, which was after I made this this episode, was about phones, but also was about just like at one point I was like, we're so different, and it's really sometimes very exhausting to navigate how different we are when we process things really differently. But the beauty in it is that when you're intentional in that space, doesn't really matter how different you are. I don't think you even like, if you've got different values, I don't think that's necessarily a red flag, because you can have conversations and grow through that.
Yeah.
And you are intentional and you challenge each other and stretch each other. And right now it sounds like this is a value for her. Fair enough value, totally fair enough value to have a conversation about. Doesn't sound like she's had that conversation, like you said. Sounds like it's only come out in a passive aggressive comment. And if it's anything like what we were communicating about, potentially he also knows that she's annoyed about it. Like, and it's the comment might be one thing, but he might already have picked up on a vibe. Who knows? I don't know. And so for her to break up or consider breaking up with him over this instance without having at least a little bit of conversation to see if they can find a common ground or put like some rules in to make them feel comfortable and safe and accepted is drastic. I don't think that's the best way to go about it, because I think without too much conversation, you can find a really common ground, which is that makes her feel unloved, obviously. And the deeper need that we've talked about is it's not just about the phone. It's about what that phone is telling her. And from his perspective, her passive aggressiveness is probably not just about the phone. It's about what that is telling him. Yeah. And what that is telling them about how they are loved or cared for or seen or appreciated or given space and that kind of thing in their relationship. We see so much. I'm not sure if it's in movies or reality shows. I don't watch reality shows, but I've seen it somewhere. Well, I hear about it, like, you know, people are like... It's probably me telling you about the shows I'm watching. Yeah, it's like, oh, we don't have anything in common, so we wouldn't work. We're not a good match and all this sort of stuff. And I think, you know, our conversation this week has been, you know, you mentioned it can be so hard because we are so different. But, man, we have these huge strengths because we're so different. Like, I don't think differences mean that we're not a good match for each other. I think it just means we have different things to navigate through. Like some people will have like more trauma that they have to navigate through, and the trauma that they've now bringing into their relationship. They've had, you know, some couples will be like, well, I was so solo driven for so long. Now I've got to work more in a team, in like, you know, as a couple and stuff like that. There's so many different things that people will be bringing into that relationship that they have to work through. Ours is that we are so different. So the way that we process stuff, the way that we view things, the expectations we have, the values we have, they're all different, and it makes it hard, absolutely. But if it wasn't this, if we were very similar, we would have other things that would be navigating through that were difficult and just as difficult and challenging as well. So that's just something I hear, and I'm like, that's not an excuse to not go through with it. What I think is where I would see is like, all right, cool, that makes sense to not go through with it, is the unwillingness to work on those differences and those challenges together. Yeah, that is exactly it. And that's the case, I would say, across the board. And that's why we're all about communication on this podcast. Your willingness to explore things will almost always make a way. Yeah. If you can be willing. It is the being met with unwillingness that there's only so much only so far that can go. Yeah. And that's where we really try to focus on what you can do, like what your ownership of that can be. But yeah, your willingness and the intentionality that, like, we are stretched because we're different. We're stretched in terms of, like, we have these tensions sometimes and they come out, for the most part, pretty good. And then there'll be a tension because we're like, ugh, it's just like a hiccup. But then if we were really similar, the tension we would probably have is we don't have one of us that functions that way. So when we're navigating things outside of our comfort zone, both of us would have to learn how to do that. So it's just, like you said, every couple's got a different equation of things that they navigate, and I agree. I don't think it's a recipe for disaster or a red flag. It just is what it is. And you work on, that's like the challenge you tackle. And when you're in a relationship and you have commitment and you've got intentionality, that challenge is okay. And this is definitely not, especially on like this scale or this surface level, obviously there could be more, but definitely not a big red flag or anything like that. This is a conversation that can be had. And there can be so many things going on. So she said he's autistic. Like, who knows what
She said they both are.
They both are, yeah. Like, and each of them could be picking up on different sensory inputs than each other and just be completely different, like, readings of the situation. Regardless of their neurodivergence, there could be a completely different reading of the situation. And if he's an introvert and he's got someone in his space, like, I totally resonate with that. Like, I do need space, and they're young and they've got other things. Like, he's got this group project. There's other commitments. They're not fully committed to each other, living with each other. So it's not quite the same, like, intensity. Yeah. So many things that could be happening, and who knows what has happened for her. It could be family culture, could be an experience with somebody else, could be a feeling of rejection. I don't know what's gone on with her to have that value. Good for her that she's got the value, because I think it's a really healthy one. But having no conversation about it is not going to help. Considering breaking up with him about it, that's not going to fix that problem for you, because you're going to have to navigate that problem, that conversation, that value difference with somebody else down the track. It's just a conversation that needs to be had, regardless of who you're with.
Something we finished on, though, in our conversation, like, we identified, we're so different, and we identified that again, and we spoke it out loud. It is hard. It is hard to navigate that. And we sort of looked through too of like, well, because the last time we had a big argument before this one was when we were renovating our house, getting ready to sell for this house. And what we identified, if we don't see a pattern, we've got to explore and try and find that pattern. And the pattern that we discovered was when we keep missing each other, like when we're busy, we're so busy and we don't have that quality time together, this sparks up because we haven't had that intentional time to talk and just to, just to be and have the conversation, because we just haven't been able to have that intentionality. So you've been out a lot for your rehearsals. I've been out for volleyball, and we've just been very stretched with the kids at the moment. And we've been missing each other, like, just in terms of proximity. We haven't had that quality time together. And so I think that's been a big learning for us is, cool, okay, we've had the argument. What is the pattern? Why has this happened again? And what can we do about it? And that's the conversations we're continually having now. So it's not finished. But I think that's something that's really important is if you guys find yourself in those patterns of disagreements and arguments, trying to identify that. And then
what is the unmet need?
What is the unmet need? Exactly. Why does this keep repeating? What can we do about it? They're really important parts of the conversation. You and I spoke, I think it was in the last episode as well, about fighting's not bad. It's fighting well. We need to learn to fight well. And you and I don't always fight well, but we do the after part well, and that's what we keep on growing in. So don't shy away from those conversations. Just
because they're uncomfortable at the beginning of your relationship. Like these are the kind of conversations that build a relationship. That is so true. And there's something that we've done before in leadership training, and it's also a little bit of a tactic that I use in coaching. And it's like asking the why and then asking the why and then asking the why. And because someone will give you an answer like, why did you throw my food out? I didn't like the flavor of it. I don't like the taste. Cool. Why was that enough to throw it out? Like, because my family never kept leftovers. I don't really like leftover food. Cool. Why? And you just dig and you'll eventually, we had a massive conversation and there was a bazillion things in that conversation that were valid. But at the end, that summary point was like, oh, that's probably the foundational need that's not being met. Yeah. So asking this question, like, why are you on your phone when we're together? Maybe not saying it that way, but, asking the why, and then they'll give an answer. And then asking a why, and then they'll give an answer. And do it in a gentle, not obnoxious, like, why, like our kids. But there's so many layers.
Stress when you trauma. That.
Yeah. And this is a prompt. This is a really good time to ask yourself, do you and your partner have mismatched expectations about together time? Because if you haven't spent that time together talking about what together time looks like, it could just be mismatched expectations of what that's going to be. And love languages play into this too, like quality time. What is quality time for you? Is that important to you? What does that mean? having that conversation. And have you ever talked about what presence looks like for each of you? Presence as in being present, not giving presents, but that too.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. And then some tools that I reckon these guys could implement is pre-frame transitions. I'm just going to zone out on my phone for a bit. I'm feeling a bit overloaded. So saying, this is what I'm doing and this is why. So that she's not left there being like, okay, like what's happening? And then another one is a check-in ritual. What kind of vibe are you needing tonight? Connection or just coexisting? Like before you're hanging out or when you first get together, especially when you're not living together, what kind of vibe are you needing? Are you exhausted and you just need to like be together but not hanging out super quality time? Or do you want to be really connecting and making the most of the time together? Just to get those expectations on the same page. And I feel like with a few conversations, this would really iron out for itself.
Yeah, another good conversation to have. Again, like, it's those things where it's like these irritations that we have, we put them off. You know, we don't know how to navigate through it. Sometimes we don't even know from ourselves, like, why is this irritating me so much? Self-evaluation before going into the conversation is really important also. But in a second, we're going to jump into one of the biggest topics in this area, the dead bedroom. But first, just a quick pause. If you love this podcast, if you want to support us and this podcast, we would just love for you to take some time, like, share, subscribe. That is huge for the platforms that our podcasts are on. You know, we are a small podcast. We're not a big one. So for people to be able to find us, the algorithm needs those comments and needs those likes and needs that input for it to be able to get in front of other people. It helps us to get back in front of you. It also helps us to get in front of new people. So if you want to support us in any way, smash that like, share, subscribe, comment on anything, any platform that you're watching on. Greatly appreciated. We appreciate you. We value everyone that's been doing this. We just want to say thank you so much for all those that have been doing that. But for everyone else, please jump onto that bandwagon as well. We'll really appreciate it. Let's get back into it.
All right, here we go. The dead bedroom.
What?
What was that?
I don't know. Yeah, I was gonna go like bump bump bump. I was like, what? And then I just joined them all.
Yeah. And then your throat made a noise.
Yeah.
All right. So this story is called, At What Point, If Your Needs Aren't Being Met, Is It Time to Walk Away? So for the past year and a half or so, the intimacy has pretty much been non-existent. We do have a toddler, so I'm aware that things would change after she was born, but not to this extent. We've been together for almost 5 years, and up until our daughter, sex was constant. Every day almost, multiple times even. The passion is like nothing I've ever experienced. Good for them, you know?
Well done. Well done.
Before we read on, what gender do you think this writer is?
Male. Female.
It's a female.
What?
Just to throw
okay, because it's actually shifted my perspective now.
I know. Now it's nothing. I brought it up. I've asked maybe if we need to seek a doctor's opinion, maybe if it's something underlying. He just shows zero interest. He gives excuses to turn me down. If I don't attempt to initiate, the once a month probably wouldn't happen. I feel like a broken record. I feel like I'm practically begging for the man to give it to me. Yes, we have stressors like everybody else, but the past year and a half, I've tried it all. I bought toys to try and spice things up. He was actually offended by this. I opened up conversations and nothing. At what point is it fair for me to say my needs are not being met and I don't want a dead bedroom? Intimacy is very important to me. It's starting to affect my overall confidence now. Physical touch is my love language, and I have a high sex drive, and I want to be desired by my husband. I don't want to call it quits. I love and adore this man. However, I don't want to be my husband's roommate anymore.
Unmet needs. Okay, so this is, I'm going to look at this from two perspectives, and I'm glad you actually told me that this is a female as well reading through that, because it really shifted my perspective. The first perspective I had of like, all right, man, you need to understand, like, you know, what goes through like
This is when you thought it was a guy.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, the hormones that are going through, the labor, all this sort of stuff, all affect, it can all have an effect in this area.
Yeah.
Something that's not very spoken about, like that's not spoken about much, I've mentioned on this podcast quite a lot, though, is the effects that having a baby can have on a man.
Yeah,
right?
mental health.
So mental health. So it's so research shows that 1 in 10 dads suffer from postnatal depression. 56% of dads won't do anything about it, and 60% of dads in general see postnatal anxiety and depression for men as a sign of weakness. So there's a whole stigma around it as well. So I'm not saying that this is what this guy has, but what I'm saying is that guys are a lot less likely to get help for ourselves, address the help that we need, or seek out or evaluate or whatever else. Like, this is something, it's a real issue for men, especially in Australia. I can't speak about it in other countries, but there's stigma around, I need to be the strong guy. I need to not show emotion. I need, don't show weakness sort of stuff. But it shoots us in the foot, because the people that it gets affected the most is actually not us. We might be struggling with what we're struggling with, but it affects everyone around us, especially those that are closest to us. So this is a real issue for men of not speaking things through and addressing this stuff. I could see that this guy could be struggling with his own identity in view of like, why do I have a low sex drive? Like, why am I struggling with this? And then with that can come guilt, which fuels that whole thing. This is at a very surface level, zero perspective from his side of zero input from his context. Thank you, from his side into this conversation. But I just wanted to say that, because if there's any guys that are relating to what I've just shared there, it's really important that you do something about it. You can reach out to us, and we can actually share some resources onto you. It'll be anonymous. You can reach out to organizations, like we can give you organizations to reach out to and stuff. So do that. That's at the bare minimum. I just wanted to say that, because it's something that's not spoken about much. I'm very passionate about this area, and this is what we do in my work as well. So the other element that I can also relate to in this as well is there could be a bunch of different things going on for this guy as well. It could be, I don't really know how to go into this, like cut into this, but what came into my mind straight away was when I struggled a lot with intimacy was when I had a pornography addiction. So that's another thing that my mind goes to, is because, so for me, I've had a history of addictions, either drugs, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever else. And it just kept on transferring through to these different things. And when we got married, I was that transferred through to pornography. It had a direct impact on my mood, my mental health, and my intimacy and my drive. And that's been a huge thing that we've had to navigate through. But this is something I go to. I'm not saying that he is, but I could see this being something that, could be sparking on him as well.
Yeah. That's the kind of underlying part of this, is there could be so many things going on, and the conversations need to be had. The hard part is that she has said she's brought it up. She said she's brought it up. She's asked if they need to see a doctor. Maybe it's something underlying. He just shows zero interest. I'd be interested to know what his input into the conversations were when she brought it up. Excuses to turn me down. If I don't attempt to initiate, then it just wouldn't happen. And they've got stressors, and she's tried all of it. She's brought toys to try and make it. What I think is interesting, and I feel like immediately this would have been the case if this was from a male's perspective. We would have been like, yeah, but have you thought about how she's feeling? And I actually think that's relevant here too. I don't know. Obviously, we don't have the context, but she's talking about how she's tried everything. She initiates. She talks about it. She's like, do we need to see a doctor? She bought toys, and that's all. I understand what she's trying to do, but that seemingly is all symptom spotting. And I wonder if she's explored that deeper stuff, the mental health, if she's asked him what's going on, if she's asked him why, like she mentions that we all have stressors like everybody else, but that's very kind of dismissive sounding or more like generalizing sounding probably than I think if this was you and I would be like, what is happening? Is he burnt out? Is he, like you said, postnatal depression, male postnatal depression, or just depression, like mental health stuff going on? Is there an addiction thing going on? Is there something going on that he's feeling ashamed about, something else? Is there kind of an identity thing going on? He's now a dad, and the stress of being a dad and providing for your family, assuming that's what he's doing, like if he's working for his family and just being a dad and his identity in how he is a dad, like that changes how you see yourself. And so there could be so many things. And I feel like if this was a man writing in, people's reactions would be like, you don't understand what it's like to be a mom, to be going through your body's changing, to be going through your roles changing, your identity's gone, your interests are different, you might have mental health. Like I feel like that would be listed. So it's fascinating that that's not like the first thing that comes to mind just because it's...
Well, that's where my mind went.
That's I mean, for myself.
Yeah, because there's so many things. Like we don't talk about that sort of stuff. We don't talk at that level amongst for men in general, and men ourselves don't talk about it. Like we're a lot likely to go get help for ourselves. We're more likely to go help someone else. Yeah, you know what I mean. We're very quick to help. We're very slow to get help.
It's interesting as well because her title is "At what point, if your needs aren't being met, is it time to walk away?" And I think that angle it probably misses the mark for me. Because yes, it would be hard if you were like, this is the rest of our lives. What am I like? Is this just going to be the rest of our lives? And like, when do I walk away? But I just feel like there's like a missing piece of like, I'm worried about my husband. Something's not right.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. It's like, all right, because I feel like there's missing information here. I don't think you can look at these stories at face value, but it's where it's like, all right, well, I'm not getting the physical attention that I'm needing, so this isn't the relationship for me.
Which is very much summarizing what she's saying, but yeah,
that's generalizing it. But it's like that sounds very intense. Like that you've got a daughter, like a kid together. I don't know if she said it was a daughter, but been together for 5 years, got a kid together, and it's like, all right, now that you don't get this one element, it's like now is the time to walk away. That just sounds so intense to me. But so in this as well, we're looking at her unmet need, and we've been kind of talking about this too, though. It's like, well, I'm seeing two unmet needs here. Is like she's got a physical unmet need. We have no idea what his is, and that's something that needs to be explored. Like there is an unmet need here somewhere. It's affecting him in some way, and that needs to be explored.
Yeah. And I would actually say hers is probably not. That's the other thing with sex-related needs, which are very common. Like you'll hear, there's so many stories on Reddit about this, but it's like, I need sex, and that's what they put that down to. But I actually don't think that that's the core need that she has that's unmet. If this was me, and it has been, the benefit, I guess, if that's what I want to say, is that we've actually both been on both sides of this. So there has been a time where I felt really rejected and really unwanted by you. And that need it felt like the need that was being unmet was the physical intimacy. The real need that was being unmet was my like sense of how you thought of me. Were you even attracted to me? Did you even want me? My sense of rejection from you, that kind of thing. Not being good enough for you, all of those things. And it's even easy to miss it for her yourself. So I don't even know if she is recognizing. She does say, I want to be wanted by my husband. She says intimacy is very important to me. It's starting to affect my overall confidence now. So she's identifying it's affecting her confidence. Yeah. I think there's needs underneath that. And when we have gone through these seasons on both sides, the thing we've found is a person that's been struggling, it doesn't make it easier to just know how much the other person needs it. Like that, it actually is like it's more pressure and shame and like build up. And it's a little bit like disabling in some ways. But if we had when we have had the conversation about what it's been meaning to each other, that makes it easier. So if they're having a conversation and she's like, I feel like I'm not wanted by you. I don't feel wanted. There's like deeper emotional connection, identity type needs that are being missed here. I feel like if she's able to communicate it on that level, it takes away a little bit of the pressure about the physical intimacy and allows them to focus on what emotional intimacy is not being met. And the more that you focus on, I just like, why won't you do it? I just want to do it. I just want to do it. I'm going to buy these toys and make it like whatever. It's not going to make someone who's not in a good place feel better about doing it. Like that's just not how it works, unfortunately. So I think you're right. There's so many different sides to it. It sounds like there's something there for him, whatever it might be. And there needs to be a gentle curiosity in navigating that conversation. There's definitely something there. She recognizes it seems, but I'd be curious to see what would come out for her if she was to dig a bit deeper, and what would happen for them if she was able to communicate on that level. And so a little prompt out of this story for us to think about is, if you brought something up many times and nothing has changed, what do you usually do next? Do you withdraw? Do you push harder? Or do you pretend it doesn't matter? What would it look like to name the real cost? And what would it look like to dig deeper in those kind of why activities of what's going on underneath? A couple of tools, no pressure truth share. So you could say, I'm not trying to fix this. I just want to share where I'm at emotionally and hear where you are too. So you can take off, we're not fixing it in this conversation. We're just talking about it to kind of remove some of the pressure he might be feeling. Second is an intimacy wish list. Each person writes down small ways they could feel close, not just sexual, writing down ways to feel connected intimately without it being physical. So remove the physical pressure of it all together for a little while and just connect like we said after our discussion, a lot of the time, a lot of things ease up when you finally are connecting. And if they haven't had time to connect, then some of that stuff might be made easier just by connecting in different ways. So Blaze just popped out to a child, classic. But I just wanted to finish on this note. When you name a need calmly and clearly, you're teaching your brain that it's also safe to take up space. You're also helping that become a culture in your relationship, a muscle that is strengthened in your relationship. And it might be uncomfortable at first, but it's better for you and it's better for your partner and it's better for your relationship in the long run. And it rewires old patterns. You're able to communicate about needs and then have the conversation with curiosity and grace outside of that. It actually starts to rewire your brains to navigate that better. So definitely important to be addressing. We're going to dive into a quick reality check corner. Firstly, a personal reflection prompt. Is there a need I've been downplaying or hoping my partner will just notice because I'm afraid it'll seem silly, selfish, or it will start a fight? Also, is there a need my partner has expressed that I have quietly forgotten to honor? And what would it look like to name that need without shame and to own it instead of waiting for it to be guessed? I think this is really important. We make so many assumptions. We expect our partners to just know things. And that's just not the most constructive way of navigating a relationship. It's not the way that is going to bring about the best results. Here's a quick challenge you can implement straight away. Pick one small unmet need, something simple like alone time, verbal appreciation, or shared planning, and name it this week. Keep it in one sentence, say it calmly, say it gently, and say it for you. So you can try something like, it helps me stay present when I know I've got even a small moment planned together. Or I realized I feel more secure when I hear what you're thinking, even if it's just a little check-in. So you're naming a need in a gentle, constructive, assuming positive intent kind of way. And just to finish on a final future pace, and this is just an activity that helps us to anchor into some kind of future goals moving towards motivational picture, and then borrow those feelings to help us motivate us to work towards the things we're working towards. So just close your eyes and we'll take a second to do this one. I want you to visualize what we read out. Imagine this. A few weeks from now, you're saying what you need calmly and clearly without over-explaining or hoping that they've guessed right. Not everything has changed, but something in you feels lighter. You're no longer stuffing it down or spiraling after every conversation. You're showing up with honesty and self-respect. And that shift, it's reshaping the tone of your relationship. It's not perfect. It's just real. It's more connected. How does that feel? What's different in your body? What's different in your breath? In the way you hold yourself? Let that version of you, the one that speaks calmly with clarity, help you today move towards what you're wanting to work for in your relationship. All right, guys, thank you so much for being with us to talk about unmet needs. We will chat to you very soon. Have a good week.